the second session of day one, and we start up with a very special presentation on affordable housing and housing finance. And ladies and gentlemen, to present, please join me in welcoming the MD and CEO, National Housing Bank, Mr. Sriram Kalyanaraman.
Good afternoon. During the next 10 minutes or so, what I'm going to cover is what are the, when we said on Google and Skype and how things have changed, what are the major changes that's happened, which you know, but I'm going to try and put concisely in a few slides and say how investing here is probably the best thing for any of the investors who are looking at India. Now, some of the points, fortunately or unfortunately, has been covered in detail by the Honorable Minister. So I would skip it through in the interest of not repeating it. Overall, let's see what is the scale of housing, what is the government initiatives, and what do we see probably the future in this industry. See, if you see the level of urbanization is in India, as we said, expected to touch 40%. And with the housing shortfall in the BPL segment, which is about EWS and BPL together 1.8 million, as the minister put it. Sorry, 1.8 crores, as the minister put it. So the challenges in front of us is very high. And as they once said, Victor Hugo said, nothing is stronger than an idea whose time has come. Affordable housing is an idea whose time has come. So how the government initiatives are moving towards it, what is the initiatives of the ministry and nodal agencies like NHB towards it is what we would cover. Now look at this slide, just when people say that not much is happening on the ground, many of our states in a federal structure, as you all know, much of the housing is controlled by the state governments. And many of the states in population size is as complicated and the issues are as complex as a country. So what this slide essentially says is compares each state's population to that of another country and look at the challenges which we would see when very clearly when you are taking a policy decision or when things are moving, right? This is what once I was asked in a press conference 1 week ago, how are we going to say that this will happen when it is such a complicated subject or such a complicated process of approvals? I only said one thing. Once my friend tweeted to me stating he went abroad and he said, I'm working on aquathermal treatment of ceramics under constrained environment. We were a little surprised because all that event was for an MBA and this looked like rocket science to us. Till he later on explained, all that he was doing is washing dishes in a restaurant part-time, right? So complication is a state of mind. How do we face it? And when we break down this into smaller pieces of action, you would see it's not so much of complicated. As we covered earlier, it's labor intensive, primarily employs maximum number of people next to agriculture, with 250 industries forward and backward integration, largest employer, and with 1.24% of the total output of the economy, with construction sector totally now even crossed the 10%, 11.3%. Whenever we discuss this, and more so in the rural housing schemes, when you start putting a model or to say for each of the houses that come up, how much they employ the local labor, the economics which comes out of it is mind-boggling. So there is a lot of focus in encouraging the housing and in affordable housing over a period of time. And when I look at the India's mortgage market from a comparison, which is the oft-quoted data, We have 9% of our GDP in the housing, which there is a lot of scope and potential. And in the global pricing index, India is among the top price appreciating housing markets, at least till recently, which probably is good and bad, right? When the appreciation goes beyond a point, then it becomes unaffordable. But as far as we are concerned, coming from affordable housing, and if you draw a line of 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs for affordable housing, I think there is no slump in that market. The prices, if not appreciating, are being very steady, which is not a bad thing, and is scope for further houses, further supplies to come in, because one of the things which bankers and housing finance companies always tells us is, show us good supplies in the segment. So the growth in mainstream residential prices has landed at 9th place among top international markets in the 12 months to June 2017. So considering our huge population and with rising purchase power and social transition, we foresee a huge potential for the mortgage market in this country. What's our housing finance data? It stood at about 10.8 lakh crores at the end of last year, and this does not include the private bank data. If I add all the private and foreign banks, probably another 2 lakh crores, which I would take, right? At about 12.8 lakh crores. And the biggest point is, in last year, it has grown 14%, and this is housing finance data, grown 14% compared to 19% and odd in the previous years. It is not, when we dig deeper into that, we found out that it's not the growth has slowed down. It's only that 40% of the tickets financed or the houses financed has gone to below 12 lakhs or below 10 lakhs. Which means there has been already a tremendous shift in the way the financial institutions finance the houses, the way the demand has taken off in the last year. So while the value-based counting has come down in number of units, it has increased. And the banks and HFCs both have contributed to this increase on the number of units, thereby clearly establishing the focus on the low-cost housing or the affordable housing is increasing across the geographies. Actually, the new bookings below 10 lakhs in number of units has seen a growth of something like 43%. Now, we specifically said there are 4 legs which the ministry has launched. One is in situ slum redevelopment. We know Maharashtra is the model for many of the states there. Affordable housing through credit-linked subsidies, which I would cover in a minute. Affordable housing in partnership with the PPP models, which the minister just announced some of the probably path-breaking initiatives. Having had the benefit of working with the ministry in some of these initiatives, we honestly believe at this point in time, when this comes out, and if implemented in its letter and spirit, some of this will revolutionize the change, because so far it was only in discussion and theory that the land cost will not be loaded. Today, actually, when the policy comes down, you see at least a large part of it will be reality to work to make houses more affordable in metros. The total project considered under PMAY so far is 5,147. EWS houses is 23.92. The minister said 27 lakhs. Probably another 4 lakhs got approved in the last week. Central assistance involved is about 38,000 crores as per the minister. And total value of the projects is 1,40,000 crores. Now all this, people ask me, where are they? I am saying, wait, these are approvals which have come up. Houses take time to come up. It doesn't come in the air. But look at the scale of things which are happening. Now, what has National Housing Bank done as central agency to this? One of our goals is to encourage new housing finance companies to come up, and we are glad to say most of them, when they submit the business plan, are coming up in the affordable housing sector. For example, in the last 2 years, there are about 22 housing finance companies which have been added to the landscape. We have made licensing so simple that if they meet X set of criteria and there's no negative reports from regulators, you can start housing finance companies. The data submissions has been completely made online. And as the nodal agency for the credit-linked subsidy scheme for EWS and LIG, as I said, it was launched in Bombay by the FM. We have now crossed 1,039 crores. I think the other nodal agency is about another 20 crores. So total disbursed is 1,059 crores, which is probably by far the highest subsidy ever given to any housing scheme in independent India. We have also published the Residex, and as we speak, there is the second set of Residex meeting happening in Delhi, which eventually we would hope will become the gold standard or the platinum standard on housing prices. So we'll get away from this discussion of circle value, so on and so forth. The state governments would start using it as a, let's say, as a benchmark for various decisions. What we have done is we do, and not many know, is that a stamp duty study of comparison of states every quarter, and we take meetings with the state governments. Probably not part of a direct role of NHB, but we said we will do it with ATCO, with the HUPA, the earlier ministry. And the present minister has also shown interest, so we'll go to him. And we can rightly take the credit for contributing and influencing a couple of state governments for reducing the stamp duty. For example, Maharashtra EWS is already down to 1,000 or 3,000. We are working on some of the other initiatives. What we had also done is created a complete model. If the state government revenue secretary or housing secretary wants to know by reducing in this segment, what will be my impact and what will be the other additional revenues which will go up, we have the model ready. We have been talking to various state governments, please use this, but let's draw a line of 25 lakhs or 30 lakhs and bring down the entire stamp duty and registration charges there. We have done a land acquisition, land pooling study, which we are sharing with the state governments, and on property insurance. Cumulatively, not many know, we do low-cost refinancing for the banks as well as financial institutions, with the condition that their housing loan cannot exceed MCLR plus 100 basis points for banks, or for HFCs 3.5%, and today we do them refinance at about 4.8 or 5%. So under our urban refinance scheme, so far we had done about, under the urban refinance scheme, so far we have done about 8,000 crores. Last year we did 22,000 crores. And in our quest of developing the affordable housing, we have tied up with the World Bank Fund, whereby we are giving refinance and encouraging the housing finance companies to give for people without proper title and without proper income. Already 507 crores have been disbursed under that, and we would increase it. In fact, World Bank is very happy because this is the pilot and the first time in any country they had started this. And so far, touch wood, even the NPAs on that is on very controllable levels. We are working with the DFID for another 50 million, which we have, and with AFD of France for a green housing of 100 million euros, which we have signed the agreement. A quick back on what does the subsidy mean. What I request all the builder friends here is, please also tell the customer when it comes to you, because these are standardized eligibility. There is nothing called somebody could reject it on a credit criteria. The eligibility is completely defined by the government. As far as you don't own a house and you fall within that parameter and the building falls within the parameters, he is eligible. It is 6.5% on EWS and LIG and 3 or 4% on the MIG side. So as I had said, on the EWS LIG, we have moved to 1,020 crores. However, MIG surprisingly, and we are still talking to banks, the subsidy has been very less. And look at it, MIG covers 12 lakhs and 18 lakhs income segment, which means a 12 lakh guy would, in our way of calculation, would be eligible for 36 lakhs to 40 lakhs of home loans, right? Which means the property prices will be 50 lakhs. And an 18 lakhs income guy is going to be eligible for a 60, 65 lakhs property. Here, I think we need to push some of the financial institutions, and please also start educating the customer who comes to buy that there is a subsidy available. The MIG is available only till December, so all the more reason how we push this much more. We are also happy to say on the last meeting, and probably one of his last awards, the Honorable Minister then for Housing, Venkaiah Naidu, gave the award to the states. And Maharashtra state got the first prize for implementing CLSS in a very big way. I think we should keep that momentum and take that forward. The chart gives how the CLSS in terms of state-wise clearly spans out. I was speaking to the Honorable Minister from J&K that one of our goals is to work with her and her team to take this and implement much more in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. I'm not going to cover the details because I think there have been enough seminars on the RERA. But when I say the environment is changing, one is RERA, two is the GST which has come in, barring your differences with the government saying, because I think the government is feeling that prices have to come down, and some of you have this one, the minister has asked for a complete working on that. But barring that, yesterday if you see, there was a very nice article in the Economic Times. The investments into India real estate has increased from average of about 2.8 billion in the last year to 3 earlier, and now to 4.1, which is the highest. And it is attributed essentially to RERA and GST and the incentives given by the government. So while you might face some problems, and all of us might face some problems in the initial days, these are probably speed breakers and not showstoppers, because it is increasing the confidence of the end buyer, because it is unimaginable an industry of $100 billion is without a regulator so far. So it is in the interest of the builder fraternity to go back to some of the state governments which has not implemented this and get it implemented faster and swifter, so that the confidence of the outside world on the entire system increases much faster and much better. Currently, 13 states of UTs have notified rules, and the other states are yet to follow. We are also working with some of the state governments on the policy decisions and how we can simplify approvals. We have done some of those approvals and processes, and has been named by at least one state government so far as knowledge partner for the shelter fund. The infra status for affordable housing, we discussed it a lot before the FM announced it last year, but we think the infra status is giving the right message and is increased accessibility of funds for the builders. Let me move on because I'm not covering this too. I've just put this slide for a minute before I conclude. How does the formal credit from a formal, this includes banks, HFCs, NBFCs in the system, moves on. The total outstanding as of, this includes everything, not only housing, is about 101 trillion portfolio, and the consumer is about 43 trillion. So look at the scope this would go, especially when a housing, which is probably an 8 or 10-year loan to the individuals. Now the whole initiative of this housing for all is a grand coalition between the center, state, urban local bodies, public agencies, private builders, institutions like us, and end customer. We are all the agents and the implementers and executors of this goal. But as I said earlier, this is going to need a lot of commitment, great dedication, and more importantly, an utmost devotion. Because some of these speed breakers will take time, and we need to keep on knocking at it. It's Captain Raghu of the Indian Army who said, soldiers do not go to war because they hate the enemies in front. They go to war because they love their countrymen at the back. And we have taken, all of us who are to our countrymen at the back, to make this goal and dream of housing for all come true. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. May we please request Mr. Prashant Sharma, Treasurer, NAREDCO Maharashtra and Director, GHP Corporation, to kindly come up on stage. Mr. Kalyanaraman, we would request you to kindly stay back on stage as well. Requesting Mr. Sharma to present a bouquet to Mr. Sriram Kalyanaraman for the wonderful presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in thanking Mr. Sriram Kalyanaraman.